She stood at the dance without a partner. The cowboy crossed the room and said, "She's taken." The summer evening had a golden glow that stretched across the small town, touching the tops of the barns and fences with warmth. The air smelled faintly of hay, fresh grass, and the faint sweetness of wildflowers that grew along the dirt roads leading to the fairground. From the distance, the sounds of fiddles and guitars drifted, mixed with the laughter of children running past the tents, their voices carrying with the wind. Tonight was special. Every year, the town hosted a summer dance in the old barn at the edge of the fields, and everyone from the town, young and old alike, looked forward to it. Emily had been waiting for this evening for weeks. She had helped her mother polish the wooden floors of their small home, sewn a new dress with tiny yellow flowers that danced along the hem, and even brushed her hair more carefully than usual. She had imagined herself twirling across the dance floor, laughing with friends, and maybe, just maybe, finding someone to ask her for a dance. But as the sky deepened into shades of pink and purple and the barn lights glimmered like little stars, Emily felt something she hadn't expected, an uneasy emptiness. When she stepped through the open barn doors, she felt the lively atmosphere wash over her. The floorboards creaked with each step of the dancers, and the music seemed to wrap around the walls like a warm blanket. The laughter of couples and groups mingled with the sound of shoes scraping against the wooden floor, creating a rhythm all its own. But despite the energy around her, Emily felt a strange kind of stillness. She looked around at the spinning skirts, the cowboy hats bobbing with each beat, and the sparkling eyes of those who had already paired up. And then she realized she was alone. Her heart sank a little, but she straightened her shoulders and tried to hide it. "It's just for fun," she whispered to herself, forcing a smile. She stepped closer to the edge of the floor, trying to catch the eye of someone who might ask her to dance. But every time she looked, she saw couples laughing, spinning and gliding with a kind of ease that seemed out of reach. Her hands fidgeted nervously at her sides. She had never felt this self-conscious before. Usually, she was quiet but confident enough to enjoy herself among her friends. Tonight, though, the barn seemed bigger, the music louder and her loneliness sharper. Emily's mother had given her some gentle advice before she left. "Just have fun, Emily. Don't worry about anyone noticing you. Dance if you want, laugh if you want. Just enjoy the evening." Those words comforted her, and she tried to breathe in the scent of the hay and music, trying to feel the joy her mother had promised. She nodded to a few familiar faces, waving politely, but most of her friends had already found partners. She felt the warmth of their smiles, but also the reminder that she had no one to share the dance with. Standing there, Emily noticed the details of the barn that she had never really paid attention to before. The lanterns hung from the beams, swaying slightly as the dancers moved past them, casting dancing shadows on the walls. The wooden floor was polished enough to reflect the lights, but small scratches told the story of countless dances from summers past. A faint breeze blew through the open doors, carrying the sound of crickets from the fields outside. The whole place felt alive, full of stories and laughter, yet she couldn't shake the feeling of being invisible, like a small figure standing in the background of a painting meant for others. She tried to distract herself by tapping her foot to the rhythm, letting the music fill the space around her. The fiddler's bow moved quickly across the strings, creating a sound that was both lively and comforting. Emily could feel the pulse of the music, the way it seemed to make the barn itself breathe. She closed her eyes for a moment, imagining herself twirling with a partner, feeling the sway of the dance, the lift of her skirt, the warmth of another person's hand in hers. In that quiet mental moment, she felt almost free, almost part of the rhythm. But when she opened her eyes, the floor was still full of dancers, and she was still standing alone. Other girls laughed and skipped past her, some with nervous excitement, some with confident smiles. Emily noticed how easy they seemed, how naturally the dance came to them. She wondered if she would ever feel that way, so unafraid, so certain of her place in the movement. Her stomach twisted with a mixture of longing and anxiety. She didn't want to admit it to anyone, not even herself, but she felt the sharp sting of loneliness, the kind that comes not just from being physically alone, but from feeling unseen in a room full of people. Emily shifted from one foot to the other, unsure whether to step forward or stay back. She wanted to move closer to the music, to the excitement, to the possibility of someone noticing her. But she also felt a strange kind of fear. What if no one asked her to dance? What if she tried and stumbled? What if she looked awkward? She bit her lip and took a small step forward, glancing around, hoping to find a friendly face, a familiar smile, someone who might offer a hand. It was then that she noticed a few boys standing together at the far end of the barn. They were laughing, tipping their hats, and watching the dancers with an easy confidence. One or two glanced in her direction briefly, but quickly turned away, distracted by friends or the music. Emily felt her heart sink a little again, but she reminded herself to stay calm. She told herself that she didn't need someone else to enjoy the night. She could laugh, she could dance, she could live in the moment, even if it meant standing on the edge for now. To distract herself further, Emily began noticing small things about the people dancing. A girl in a pale blue dress twirled so gracefully that her skirt seemed to float. A boy with a straw hat kept time with the music so perfectly that he looked like he was part of the fiddle itself. She saw friends leaning into each other, sharing secret smiles, hands brushing lightly as they turned and spun. Each detail filled her with a quiet longing, a reminder of the connection she wished she had tonight. But she also felt a small flicker of hope, a whisper that maybe, just maybe, her moment would come. As the evening progressed, Emily found herself swaying gently to the music, still alone but beginning to feel a bit more comfortable. Her body moved almost instinctively, letting the melody guide her. For the first time, she felt a tiny spark of courage, a feeling that she could step into the dance at any moment, that someone might notice her, that the night wasn't over yet. The music seemed to embrace her, wrapping her in a soft rhythm that reminded her that she belonged somewhere, even if she hadn't found the right partner yet. Time passed, and the barn grew warmer with the movement of dancers and the hum of conversation. Emily's initial nervousness began to fade, replaced by a quiet observation. She noticed the laughter that came from genuine joy, the careful steps of those who were learning, the way couples held hands lightly but with intention. She realized that each person had their own story, their own hopes and hesitations. And perhaps, she thought, she didn't need to feel invisible. Maybe she just needed to wait for the right person to see her the way she wanted to be seen. By the time the fiddler took a short break and the music softened, Emily had found a corner where she could rest her feet without feeling completely apart from the crowd. She leaned lightly against a wooden post, listening to the murmurs of conversation and the soft tapping of shoes. Her eyes wandered across the barn again, taking in the details, the way the lanterns flickered, the way shadows moved, the way the music seemed to leave trails of warmth in the air. For the first time since she arrived, she felt a sense of calm. The dance was still happening all around her, and though she hadn't joined fully, she felt like she was part of something bigger, a rhythm that included her even without a partner. Emily smiled quietly to herself, realizing that this evening, despite her worries and her loneliness, wasn't a failure. She had arrived, she had observed, she had allowed herself to feel, and deep down she knew that her moment was coming. She just didn't know exactly how or when. But as the fiddler prepared to start the next song, she felt a flicker of excitement, a sense that maybe the next few minutes could change everything. And in that quiet anticipation, Emily stood a little taller, ready for whatever the night had in store. The music changed as the fiddler lifted his bow again, bringing a new song to life, faster, livelier, with a beat that made the wooden floor vibrate beneath the dancers' feet. The barn seemed to sway with the rhythm, every lantern flickering in time, casting warm shadows on the walls. Jack leaned against the side of the barn, one boot tapping lightly on the floor, watching the dancers with a relaxed smile. He had come to the fair without any particular plan, just to enjoy the music, the company of friends, and maybe a quiet evening away from the hard work of the ranch. Jack had always been confident in a quiet way. He didn't need to show off or call attention to himself. His clothes were simple, faded jeans, a worn shirt, and a hat that had seen many summers. But there was something in the way he carried himself, calm and steady, that made people notice. Tonight, however, his attention was drawn not to the group of laughing friends he had arrived with, but to a small figure standing near the edge of the dance floor. Emily stood there, her floral dress swaying slightly as she shifted from foot to foot, a little too shy to join the other dancers, a little too nervous to approach anyone. Jack's eyes lingered on her for a moment. There was something different about her, something that made her stand out among the crowd. She didn't seem to notice the way people glanced around for partners or the way friends laughed together. She was quiet, almost still, but there was a kind of presence about her that was impossible to ignore. Jack tilted his head slightly, studying her from across the room. He noticed the way her eyes followed the dancers, not with envy but with a kind of curiosity, like she was waiting for something she couldn't yet name. He saw the nervous fidgeting of her hands, the small adjustments of her dress, the way she leaned lightly against the post when she thought no one was watching, and in that moment he made a decision. He would cross the room and he would see if she was willing to dance. He took a small step forward, boots making soft thuds against the floorboards. The barn seemed louder now, the music more insistent, as if it knew what was about to happen. Jack moved slowly, not wanting to rush or startle her, but determined to reach her. He passed clusters of dancers, nodding politely to familiar faces, offering a quiet evening here and a small smile there. Each step brought him closer, and with every movement he felt a strange anticipation he hadn't expected. As he walked, he noticed the details of the barn in a new way. The wooden beams stretched high above, rough and scarred with the marks of decades of dances. The lanterns hung from chains, flickering and reflecting off the polished floor, creating tiny pools of golden light that danced along with the couples. Music and laughter filled every corner, but Jack's focus remained on the small figure at the edge of the floor. There was a sense of quiet about her that made the world seem to slow for just a moment, a pause in the music where everything else faded. Emily, for her part, had sensed someone looking. She glanced up, her eyes scanning the crowd, but at first she didn't notice him. He wasn't one of the boys she had expected might ask her to dance. He wasn't rushing or calling attention to himself. He was just walking steadily, calmly, as though he had a purpose that had nothing to do with impressing anyone else. When her eyes finally met his, she felt a small jolt of surprise. There was warmth in his gaze, but not teasing or judgment, just a quiet certainty that made her heart skip a beat. Jack kept moving, boots firm against the floor, weaving slightly around dancers without breaking the rhythm of the music. He noticed a little girl stumbling near the edge of the floor and reached out instinctively to steady her, nodding with a reassuring smile. Then he continued, and the barn seemed to shift around him, the conversations and laughter blending into a soft hum that made the moment feel almost like it was meant to happen. He was close now, only a few steps away, and he slowed slightly, watching Emily's expression. She looked unsure, hesitant, but there was a flicker of curiosity in her eyes now, a hint that she was waiting for something or someone. He paused for a moment, considering his next words. Jack wasn't usually the type to make grand gestures. He didn't need to. But something about this quiet girl standing alone called to him, a sense that she deserved to be seen, to be recognized in a way that the world often overlooked. He wanted to give her that moment, even if it was just a simple gesture, a hand extended, an offer to dance, a word spoken softly that would let her know she mattered. Emily shifted slightly, unsure if she should step back or stay in place. Her hands clasped nervously, the small tremor betraying her otherwise calm demeanor. She had felt lonely at first, standing on the edge while the music carried on without her, but now something changed. She felt the weight of someone's attention, not the casual glance of someone passing by, but the focused, steady attention of a person who had chosen to notice her. It made her breathe a little more easily, stand a little taller, and imagine what it might be like to finally step into the dance. Jack resumed his steps, now only a few feet away. He cleared his throat softly, wanting to catch her attention without startling her. "Evening," he said quietly, tipping his hat just slightly, the gesture simple but deliberate. Emily's eyes widened a little, and she smiled, a small, tentative curve of her lips. She nodded, unsure of what to say, but feeling a sense of anticipation she hadn't felt before. The dance floor seemed to stretch between them, a space filled with possibilities. Jack took one more step, and then another, letting the rhythm of the music guide him. The fiddler's bow moved faster now, and the guitars strummed in perfect harmony, carrying the sound across the barn. Around them, the dancers twirled and laughed, but the world seemed to narrow for a moment to the space between Jack and Emily. Every movement, every glance, every heartbeat seemed magnified, making the air feel thick with expectation. Jack finally reached Emily. He stopped just a few inches away, letting the moment linger. She looked up at him, eyes bright with curiosity and a little nervousness. He could see the way her fingers fidgeted with the hem of her dress, the subtle shift of her weight, the way she held herself despite her anxiety. There was something honest about her, something that made him respect her quietly and want to protect this moment for her. Then he spoke again, a little more firmly this time, but still gentle. "She's taken." Emily blinked, caught off guard. The words weren't boastful or loud, they were soft, confident, almost like a declaration meant just for her. For a moment the barn seemed to pause. The music continued, but the words hung in the air, filling the space between them with a quiet excitement. Emily's heart raced, not from fear, but from the sudden realization that someone had seen her, truly seen her, in the middle of a crowd where she had felt invisible. She laughed softly, a nervous, happy sound, unsure what he meant but charmed by the boldness of the statement. Jack extended his hand, simple and unassuming but full of intention. "Care to dance?" he asked. Emily hesitated for a heartbeat, then with a shy smile placed her hand in his. It was a small contact, but it carried warmth, trust, and the spark of connection. As Jack led her to the dance floor, Emily felt a thrill she hadn't expected. Her heart pounded with excitement, her nerves tingled with anticipation, and a smile spread across her face that felt natural and real. For the first time that evening, she wasn't standing on the edge. She wasn't alone. She was part of the music, part of the movement, part of the story that was unfolding in that old barn filled with lanterns, laughter, and the smell of summer. The dance floor welcomed them, the wooden boards creaking gently under their weight as they began to move in rhythm. Emily's hands rested lightly on Jack's shoulders, his hand firm but gentle on her back. Every step, every turn, every twirl felt like a small adventure, a discovery of how two strangers could suddenly find harmony together. Around them the barn seemed to fade, the music swelling just for them, the lights shimmering like stars guiding their path. In that moment, Emily forgot her loneliness entirely. She forgot the nervousness, the awkward glances, the fear of standing alone. She was dancing, truly dancing, and it felt as if the entire summer night had been waiting for this. And Jack, steady and confident, guided her with care, aware of the magic of the moment but letting it unfold naturally, letting her feel the joy without rushing, without pressure. By the time the song ended, Emily's cheeks were flushed, her eyes bright, and her spirit lighter than it had been in weeks. She realized that sometimes, all it took was one person to notice you, to step forward, to offer a small gesture that could change the way you felt about yourself and the world around you. Jack smiled down at her, a quiet satisfaction in his eyes, knowing he had done something simple but meaningful. He had seen her, acknowledged her, and brought her into the dance she had been waiting for. The music shifted once again, slower this time, carrying a gentle sway that seemed to pull at the heart. Lanterns flickered above, casting a soft golden glow over the dance floor, and the chatter of friends dimmed into a comfortable hum. Emily's hand rested lightly in Jack's, her fingers slightly trembling, not from fear but from the thrill of the moment. She had never expected that standing alone at the edge of the dance floor could lead to this, a connection that felt both sudden and natural, like the first rays of sun warming the morning air. Jack's eyes met hers, calm and steady, as though he had known from the moment he saw her that this was the right thing to do. "She's taken," he said, his voice quiet yet confident, almost like a promise. The words carried weight, not in a boastful or possessive way, but in a way that made Emily feel important, seen, and acknowledged. She blinked, caught off guard, and a small laugh escaped her lips, a soft, joyful sound that seemed to mingle with the music and lights around them. Emily felt her cheeks warm as the words sank in. "Taken?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper, a mixture of amusement and curiosity. Jack's smile widened slightly, and he gave a small nod, his expression calm and reassuring. "For the night," he said simply, "at least until the song ends." His tone was playful, but it carried sincerity, a sense that he had come across the barn tonight with a purpose, to ensure she wouldn't stand alone any longer. The moment hung between them like a delicate thread, fragile yet strong. Around them, couples continued to twirl, the floor creaking gently under their steps, but for Emily and Jack, the rest of the barn seemed to fade away. The music carried them, each note a gentle push and pull, guiding their bodies without the need for words. Emily had never danced like this before, never with someone she didn't know so well, never feeling so comfortable, so safe, and yet so exhilarated at the same time. Jack led her into a gentle spin, his hands firm but careful on her back. Emily followed, trusting him, allowing herself to feel the rhythm of the music in her bones. She laughed quietly as she stumbled slightly, her skirt swishing around her legs, and Jack leaned down just enough to offer a small chuckle in return. "Careful," he said softly, "but not too careful. You're doing just fine." His words were simple, but they carried reassurance, a grounding presence that made Emily feel braver than she had all evening. As they moved together across the floor, Emily began to notice details she had missed before. The lanterns above flickered gently, creating dancing shadows that followed them wherever they turned. The scent of hay and warm wood seemed richer now, mingling with the faint aroma of the summer night drifting in from the open doors. Every tap of boots against the floor, every turn and sway, made the barn feel alive in a way that was almost magical. Emily realized she had never felt this connected to a place before, and she could sense that Jack felt it too. The way he guided her was effortless, a blend of instinct and care. He didn't rush her or pull her along. Instead, he let her find the rhythm at her own pace, his hands steady on her back, his eyes on hers, encouraging without saying a word. Emily found herself laughing more freely, her body moving in ways she hadn't thought possible just a few minutes ago. The nervous tension she had carried since arriving at the barn melted away, replaced by a lightness that made her feel almost weightless. Jack's presence was comforting, not imposing. He noticed the small details, the way Emily's hands twitched with excitement, the way she looked at him with a mixture of awe and curiosity, the tiny smiles that escaped her lips when she felt the music fully. Each small gesture mattered to him, and he matched her movements, letting her feel the dance rather than dictating it. There was a quiet joy in that mutual understanding, a shared language spoken without words, carried entirely by movement and connection. Emily's laughter rang softly as they twirled again, and Jack followed her lead, careful not to step on her feet. She felt a spark of confidence growing inside her, a realization that she could move in harmony with someone else, that she could be part of the music without fear of judgment. For so long, she had felt invisible, standing at the edge, watching others enjoy what she had longed for. Now she was not invisible. She was part of the dance, part of the moment, part of something entirely hers. Jack's eyes met hers again, and he gave a small nod, as if acknowledging her courage. "You're a natural," he said quietly, his voice warm and sincere. Emily's smile widened, and she shook her head in disbelief. "I don't feel natural," she admitted, her cheeks flushed. "I feel happy, but nervous too," Jack chuckled softly. "That's all part of it," he said, "but right now just feel the music. Everything else can wait." The barn seemed to embrace them, every corner alive with motion yet softened by the warmth of the lanterns. Emily noticed the way other dancers moved around them, the swirl of dresses, the tapping of boots, the occasional cheer when someone completed a tricky step. It all felt distant, almost dreamlike, as if the world outside the barn had paused to let this small moment unfold. She felt a sense of belonging she hadn't felt before, not because she had suddenly become part of a large group, but because someone had seen her and chosen to step into her world. As they danced, Emily began to let go of her insecurities. She allowed herself to laugh, to twirl, to lean into the rhythm of the music, and she noticed how Jack responded to her movements, adjusting effortlessly, matching her pace, making her feel both supported and free. Every step became a conversation, a silent dialogue carried entirely through motion. The warmth of his hand, the steady guidance, and the unspoken understanding created a bond that felt rare and special. Jack noticed every detail as well. He saw the way Emily's eyes sparkled when she discovered a step she enjoyed, the gentle curve of her smile when the music carried her, the subtle confidence that grew with each turn. He realized that this dance was more than just a sequence of steps. It was a moment of recognition, a gift of attention, a way to show that she mattered in a world that sometimes overlooked the quiet and the shy. He felt proud to be part of this moment, not for himself, but for her. Emily felt herself becoming braver with each passing minute. The nervous flutter in her chest transformed into exhilaration. She began to anticipate the turns, the spins, the gentle sways that Jack led her through. The music guided them, yes, but it was their shared energy, their trust in one another, that truly carried them across the floor. Each step, each pivot, each subtle sway became a small victory, a proof that she could step forward even when she had felt invisible just moments before. The song reached its peak, a crescendo of strings and rhythm that made the barn vibrate with life. Jack leaned slightly closer, careful not to overwhelm, and whispered, "Just enjoy it. No one else matters right now." Emily's heart raced, but she nodded, allowing herself to fully embrace the dance. The world outside the barn disappeared. The other dancers became background music, and the only reality that mattered was the space between them. The dance they were creating together, the unspoken connection that bound them in that golden moment. By the end of the song, Emily was laughing freely, her cheeks flushed and her spirit light. She felt a sense of wonder she hadn't known was possible, how one simple gesture, one bold statement could transform an evening, could transform her perception of herself. She realized that sometimes all it took was someone willing to notice, someone willing to step forward to make an ordinary night extraordinary. Jack smiled down at her, seeing the joy reflected in her eyes. He offered a small bow, playful yet sincere, and Emily curtsied slightly, laughing again at the unexpected fun of it. Around them, the barn continued to hum with life, but for Emily, the evening had taken on a new meaning. She had been alone, nervous and hesitant, but now she felt valued, seen, and celebrated in a way that went far beyond the dance steps themselves. And in that moment, Standing in the middle of the barn with Jack beside her, Emily realized something important. Sometimes courage isn't about taking the first step alone. It's about allowing someone else to notice your presence, to acknowledge your worth, and to share a simple, human connection that can make even the smallest moments unforgettable. The music changed again, slower this time, more gentle, almost like a soft lullaby carried across the barn. The fiddler's bow glided smoothly over the strings, and the guitars strummed in harmony, creating a rhythm that invited a slower, more intimate movement. Emily and Jack continued to move together, their hands still linked, their bodies finding a natural rhythm in each step. Every movement seemed to flow effortlessly, as though the music itself was guiding them, helping them discover a connection that went beyond words. Emily felt a warmth spreading through her chest. She laughed softly as Jack twirled her under his arm, her dress fanning out like a small burst of sunshine. She could feel his steady hand on her back, guiding her gently, giving her confidence with every step. The nervousness she had felt earlier had melted entirely, replaced by a lightness she had never experienced. For the first time in a long while, she felt completely free in someone's presence, free to move, to laugh, to just be herself without worrying about what anyone else thought. Jack noticed every little detail, the way her eyes lit up when she mastered a spin, the way her fingers brushed against his gently, almost instinctively, the way she laughed when they stumbled slightly and corrected themselves together. He realized that dancing with her wasn't just about the steps. It was about the joy, the shared energy, the quiet understanding that they were creating something special together in that old barn filled with music and light. He felt a quiet pride in being able to give her this moment, to let her feel seen and valued. Around them, the barn seemed to come alive in a new way. The flickering lanterns cast long, soft shadows, creating patterns on the wooden floor that shifted with every movement. The scent of hay mixed with the faint perfume of wildflowers, drifting in from the open doors, mingling with the warmth of the dancers around them. Laughter and conversation continued in the background, but for Emily and Jack, it all faded into soft murmurs, leaving only the music and the gentle rhythm of their steps. Emily found herself relaxing more with each turn. She began to trust Jack completely, allowing him to lead her confidently across the floor. She could feel his attention, calm and patient, guiding her movements without ever forcing her. It was a partnership in the truest sense, a shared experience that made every step feel natural. She realized that dancing wasn't just about movement. It was about connection, about understanding, about creating a small world together in the midst of the larger one. Jack, too, felt a shift in the evening. What had started as a simple gesture, reaching out to someone standing alone, had become something much more meaningful. He noticed the subtle changes in Emily, the way she laughed more freely, the way her posture straightened slightly, the way her eyes sparkled with a mixture of surprise and delight. He understood that he was helping her not only dance, but also reclaim a small piece of confidence she hadn't realized she had lost. That thought made the moment even more significant. As the music continued, Jack guided Emily through a series of gentle spins and turns. Each movement was accompanied by laughter and soft exclamations of surprise when a step worked perfectly. Emily felt exhilarated, as though each twirl was lifting her closer to the stars. She noticed how Jack's hand felt steady and reliable on her back, giving her courage to try steps she would have been too nervous to attempt alone. She began to feel a deep trust forming, a silent understanding that they were in this moment together, fully present, fully alive. The barn seemed to respond to their energy. Couples around them danced with more enthusiasm, as if the joy of Emily and Jack's shared steps had a ripple effect. The floorboards creaked pleasantly under their feet, adding a rhythm of their own to the melody. The lanterns above flickered as if nodding in approval, casting playful shadows that moved along with them. Emily felt as though the barn itself had become a partner in the dance, embracing them, supporting them, and celebrating the magic of their connection. Jack noticed how Emily's confidence grew with every movement. She laughed without hesitation now, twirled with a newfound grace, and even added little flourishes of her own to the steps. It wasn't perfect dancing, but it was perfect in its authenticity. The beauty of the moment wasn't in flawless technique, it was in the laughter, the shared smiles, the trust, and the joy they created together. Jack realized that this dance was about more than entertainment. It was about connection, about creating a memory that would linger long after the music ended. Emily felt a rush of happiness she hadn't expected. She had walked into the barn feeling nervous, unsure, and a little invisible. Yet here she was, moving in perfect harmony with someone who had chosen to notice her, to step into her world, and to guide her gently without ever making her feel pressured or inadequate. Each movement carried a small thrill, a quiet sense of accomplishment, and an awareness that she mattered, that she was being appreciated simply for who she was. The music slowed further, transitioning into a gentle, almost tender melody. Jack leaned slightly closer, careful not to crowd her, and whispered softly, "You're amazing at this." Emily felt her heart flutter. It wasn't just praise, it was recognition, sincere and kind, acknowledging not just her dancing but her presence, her courage to be part of the moment. She blushed, but the warmth in her chest wasn't embarrassment. It was a feeling of being truly seen, a rare and precious gift she hadn't expected tonight. They moved across the floor, their steps in harmony with the music and each other. Emily felt as though the dance had created a small bubble around them, shielding them from the noise and chaos of the barn. In that bubble, there was only trust, only joy, only the shared rhythm of two people discovering a connection that was gentle, patient, and full of warmth. She realized that this dance wasn't just about movement. It was about understanding, about recognizing another person's presence and celebrating it fully. Jack continued to guide her, noticing every subtle shift in her posture, every tiny smile, every flicker of hesitation that might need reassurance. He adjusted his steps accordingly, ensuring that she felt safe and confident with every turn. It was a careful balance, a partnership built on attentiveness and respect, and Emily responded with a growing trust and delight. Every twirl, every sway, every step became a conversation, a shared creation that spoke louder than words ever could. The barn seemed to hold its breath as the song reached a quiet, gentle climax. Emily felt herself spinning lightly under Jack's guiding hand, the warmth of his presence steadying her, the music filling her with a sense of magic. She laughed softly, her laughter blending with the strum of guitars and the soft hum of the fiddler, creating a harmony that seemed to lift the entire room. In that moment, she understood something important. Joy could be quiet, profound, and transformative, and it often arrived in unexpected ways. Jack noticed the sparkle in her eyes, the genuine happiness radiating from her, and he felt a deep satisfaction. This was more than a dance. It was a gift, a moment of recognition and connection that would stay with both of them long after the night ended. He realized that by simply noticing her, by stepping forward, he had created something meaningful, a memory that would be treasured far beyond the music and the lights. As the song drew to a gentle close, Emily and Jack slowed their movements, savoring the last few moments of the dance. Their steps became softer, more careful, each one a quiet acknowledgement of the connection they had formed. Emily felt a sense of completion, a deep contentment, as though the dance had given her something she hadn't even known she was missing. She had felt invisible, nervous, and unsure, and now she felt seen, confident, and joyful. Jack gently guided her to a stop near the center of the floor. He offered a small, respectful bow, and Emily curtsied slightly in return, both laughing softly at the simple ritual. Around them, the barn continued to hum with music and movement, but the moment they shared remained uniquely theirs. Emily felt a quiet pride, a sense of wonder, and a profound gratitude for the courage and thoughtfulness that had brought Jack to her side. As they parted slightly, Emily realized that the evening had changed for her in a way she hadn't anticipated. Standing alone at the edge of the dance floor had seemed so daunting, so lonely, and yet now she had experienced something extraordinary. The joy of being truly noticed, the thrill of a first dance that felt effortless, and the warmth of a connection that transcended words. She felt lighter, freer, and more alive than she had in weeks. And in that gentle, golden-lit barn, Emily understood that sometimes the simplest acts, one kind gesture, one steady hand, one soft word, could transform a night, a person's spirit, and even the way they saw themselves. She knew she would remember this dance forever, not just for the steps or the music, but for the care, attention, and shared joy that made it unforgettable.